call this meeting to order, 7:04. The chair will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
So moved.
So move. We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Roll call by the clerk, please.
Kerry McGee,
Here.
Greg LeBoissonier,
Yep.
Deb Bacon,
Here.
Gary Cody,
Here.
Ian Dickson,
Here.
Nicholas Gorham,
Here.
Ed Wazika.
Here.
I asked everybody to stand for the pledge of allegiance. Town Sergeant, if you would lead us, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask if you remain standing if you desire to invocation. Lord, we ask that you help the council and the citizens of the town of Coventry make good decisions this evening. I also ask that you protect all the first responders that are helping us out through this summer season. And with that, I ask in the Lord's name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, emergency evacuation plan. Town Sergeant? Okay, the next item is President's comments. I don't have a lot of President's comments. I just want to wish everybody, I hope everybody had a good, safe 4th of July. I hope they're enjoying the summer. I know in this last several days, we've got a little taste of what summer really is like, but we have still have a long summer left, so I hope everybody stays safe and enjoys the summer. With that being said, the next item will be District 1 updates by Councilwoman Dickson. She's going to report on the wind turbine noise and flicker issues on Route 102 and 117, and report on the proposed solar farm on Route 117. Ms. Dickson?
Thank you, Mr. President. It has been a very busy summer with a great deal of activity and concerns in the district. I said during budget season, I had received more emails during budget season than I had received for 6 years on the school committee. And I would say that the number of emails has doubled over the summer after the budget season, so it's been very busy. I'm restricted to speaking only on the topics that I listed on the agenda, so first I'll just mention the following very briefly. I've received emails from residents about a variety of issues. My usual process is to acknowledge the email and then forward it to the interim town manager for action. In some cases, the resident has already copied the manager and others, but I do forward the concern additionally. I also encourage the resident to notify the manager. Back in November, I did speak with Mr. Wazika, and I recommend that the town have a database into which residents could enter issues and concerns. We need to re-examine this idea. For each situation of which I was notified, the interim town manager, Mr. Wazika, and our police chief, Colonel McDonald, responded extremely quickly, and they have been able to offer resolutions to a number of issues. So I want to thank our interim town manager and our police chief for their receptiveness and their quick actions to resolve these issues. Next, at the beginning of the summer, I heard about a draft for the updating of Article 20, Special Regulations, Wind Energy Facilities for the zoning ordinance, and an updating of the noise ordinance. I formed a study group of 4 people. We met 3 times and offered recommendations to the planning department for improvements to the ordinance. The goal of the group was to find authoritative sources and accepted standards for the wind energy facilities, which includes references to low-frequency noise, shadow flicker, etc. I've asked the planning department to provide an update on these ordinances and the comprehensive plan. We are eagerly awaiting an agenda item in the August timeframe so that we can have an update from the planning department on all these ordinances, which are so critical and important to our residents. Unfortunately, when an ordinance is updated, it's not retroactive, so we will need legal counsel regarding how an ordinance may be applied to existing conditions. The noise ordinance is also undergoing revision, and it will reflect updated standards. We found that our ordinances are very old. They reflect very outdated and outmoded standards, and in some cases, it would be very difficult to monitor anything that would be put into a standard or ordinance, so we want to make sure that that's improved. On a more specific note, residents have sent me many, many emails regarding noise and flicker. And I just want to quote from one resident. I also have permission to quote this information, but I said that I would not use the names of people. This is a quote from a resident on Route 102. "The windmills were very loud," this is all in caps, "just before midnight. They woke us up even with the windows closed. How much longer are we expected to be woken up in the middle of the night? When will this end?" Last summer, we presented our videos of flicker and our recorded sound meter readings to the Tax Assessment Board. When we went to the meeting with them, our video of the flicker was playing on repeat on the screen, and the board members' mouths hung open when I reported that we had recorded 72 decibels, which is nearly twice the limit for nuisances in the town of Coventry. As a result of that meeting, our property value was lowered by 25%. That is a direct quote. Regarding flicker, a resident, and this is just one example, there are many others. Regarding flicker, a resident has been recording videos with his cell phone that he can record start and end times for flicker in his house, and has recorded this information on a log. Between March 4th, 2019 and July 16, 2019, he has recorded 38.7 hours of flicker in the house. Our current ordinance restricts indoor flicker to 30 hours per year. However, the town is being challenged on its ordinance and questioned whether 30 hours relates to each individual turbine or the cumulative effect. In addition to this issue with turbines, residents sounded an alert to activity on property off Route 117, where it was determined that pilings related to solar farm construction had been placed on the property. The town manager, planning officers, police were called to the property several times, and the town issued a cease and desist order. Many emails have been generated by residents concerning this activity. All this activity has caused residents issues to their well-being and has cost the taxpayers money. It has cost all of us money when we need to file legal documents and have our manager and department heads visit sites to monitor situations. I've been on the council since November 26, 2018, and these are my takeaways from all this activity and all of these emails that are being generated. 1, local residents want to be part of a solution, and they will devote time to do whatever it takes to make our town one in which there is pride and a sense of ownership. 2, the town cannot continue to play catch-up with its ordinances. We need to set as priorities getting our processes and ordinances in place and enact ordinances that are based on recognizable standards that are enforceable. 3, we need to be quicker in our response to resolve problems and work with our residents to seek speedy resolutions. As an example, on November 26, 2018, my first meeting, the town council sent a personnel policy back for revision. It has not been presented to the town council, and it was supposed to come back to us, and that's about 7 or 8 months ago. And number 4, resolutions may not be agreeable to all. We all may not agree with the resolutions that we're able to seek as members of the council. But some issues such as turbines have been lingering on for years. If all we can say as a government body is that nothing can be done legally for XYZ reasons, we need to let our residents know, based on the limitations of the Open Meeting Act and executive privilege. So this is a summary of all of the kinds of emails that I've been getting. I restricted it to just flicker and to noise. However, I'm getting lots of other emails about a variety of issues. Once again, thank you to our interim manager and to the department heads who have responded extremely quickly once notified of issues. Our residents are continuing to be concerned and upset about things that are happening, and I'm just raising these issues so that you all are aware. But there are a lot of takeaways from this. We all can do a better job, and we want to do a better job, and we know that there are residents out there who are willing to step up to the plate and help us do that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Dickson. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the approval of the town council minutes for May 22nd, June 10th, and June 24th. I asked that we just get a motion for the May 22nd and the June 10th, as a couple council members were not at the June 24th. So the chair will entertain a motion for the May 22nd and June 10th.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We
Second.
have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
Mr.
Is
President.
there any comments? Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. On a couple of the minutes, I did notice a couple typographical errors, and I will send them to the clerk.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, now, I have to abstain because I was not at the June 24th meeting, so, Mr. Vice President, if you would do this for me?
Sure. Motion to, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes of June 24th, 19.
I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion at all on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So let's show that it's three votes aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the school department report. We have somebody from the school department?
We had it last time.
This thing on? Okay, there we go. Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's summertime, so I'm going to be a little more casual than usual. So apologize if you're offended by that. Thank you for having me. I'm here representing the school department, giving the monthly report that we provide to you. I've got 4 wonderful things on here. First is congratulations to Coventry Regional Career and Technical Education automotive student Romulus Sina. Romulus finished 8th in the nation at the Skills USA competition, which took place this summer. Also, congratulations to Coventry High School teacher Shori Rashudo for being chosen as the 2019 Rhode Island History Teacher of the Year. Shori will now represent Rhode Island for the National History Teacher of the Year competition. Next item. Over the past month, Coventry Public Schools had a visit from Darfield High School Principal James Morris from July 1st to July 4th. Mr. Morris is principal in the Selwyn District of New Zealand. Many years ago, as you probably know, Coventry, Rhode Island created a formal sister city relationship with the Selwyn District in New Zealand. And Mr. Morris and the superintendent will be continuing to communicate over this summer to find ways that they could connect high school students from both districts over the upcoming school year. So very exciting things out of that. And finally, some additional good news. There's been several grants coming through, so we have another grant to talk about. It was in the news, but it's good for the community to know that Coventry Public Schools received an additional $8,800 grant from the State Opioid Response Grant through Kent County Prevention Coalition. The money will be used to fund 2 programs. The first will be a recovery lunch that will be held at Coventry High School 1 day per week during lunch periods. And these lunches will be an extension of the 7 Challenges treatment program that is facilitated by CCAP within our high school. The second program is an intergenerational mentoring program that will pair up middle school students with seniors at the senior center. Coventry DHS Director Robillard will facilitate this program using the Peace Love model. It promotes mental wellness by using creativity and expression to inspire, heal, and communicate. And that is it for the school department report. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you.
I just want to add, as I forgot in my president's comments, and I wasn't here at the June 24th meeting, I did have the privilege of attending the Coventry High School graduation, and what a great job they did. It was really a nice graduation ceremony, and it worked out beautiful. So I want to commend the school department for putting on such a good graduation. So, all right. That being said, Madam Clerk, C1, if you would.
Application for a new victualling license with additional hours. It's a new owner, Coventry Gas Donuts LLC, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts, 851 Tyoke Avenue.
Is there anybody from that establishment here? You could welcome up to the mic, please, and your name and address for the record. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Jim Lynch, 37 Old Drive.
Okay, you're looking for extended hours. Can you elaborate on it? Let us know what you're looking for.
I was limited per state ordinance, 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. Okay. I'm looking for a 4 a.m. opening as opposed to 6 a.m.
And there's no problem with state law, solicitor?
No.
No, okay. Is there any questions from anybody from the council, any comments?
You mean To be able to get coffee at 4 a.m.?
Correct. Correct.
Nobody
Anything
vote
that'll
against that.
keep me from having to use the corporate one on the other street at 4 a.m. would be perfect for me, thank you.
Okay, well,
Got it.
if there's no questions, that's it, just strictly 4 a.m. opening is the only change?
Yeah, yeah.
No issues.
No issues on it? You have a comment?
I have no problem with 4 a.m. I just mentioned to the town manager that this form says additional hours. There's no indication on the form what the hours, what the person wanted. I didn't see it. So I just think that there should be a review of the forms that we have so that when there is something that says additional hours, we know what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah, she's correct, I don't see anything about additional hours, that's why I asked you.
We'll revamp the form.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, if there's no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion to either approve or deny.
Motion?
We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, D1, please.
Resolution authorizing the interim town manager to extend completion deadline of the new DHS police station from August 15th to September 15th, 2019.
All right, I believe we have someone that wants to speak on that.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thanks.
Can you explain to us, because last I knew, the deadline was August 15th, and there was fines levied for every day after August 15th. So would you be so kind to explain the need to extend until September?
So the deadline date is actually July 28th. And then the liquidated damages would start then. At the beginning of the project, the committee extended it a couple of weeks, and we came before the town council, and you guys all of you instructed us that we didn't have the authority to extend the date any longer. The reality of the project is the issues that we had starting the project out, a number of issues that came out throughout the whole project, which I could list them if you're interested in hearing them, but there were many.
Well, I want to know if the issues were because of failure on the town's behalf to do anything, or whether they were failure of the contractor to, that's what I do want to
Okay,
know.
so it started out where the zoning plant permitting got held up for about 3 to 4 weeks at the beginning of the process. So we awarded the contract to Tower Construction, and it was a few weeks before they actually got the permit through our own internal departments to get everything they needed to get started. Once they got started, we ran into some delays with a leach field and septic system that was in the parking lot that wasn't identified on any map, that we had to stop, regroup, and have that removed and taken care of. We had all of the tunnels underneath the building. When we went in to inspect it, we found that they had asbestos, and that had to be abated.
That was never determined prior to the start of the job?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Nope. The floors, when we cut the floors to put the new utilities in, we found that the backfill underneath the system, underneath the floor system, wasn't backfilled properly, or it had settled over the years, so the floors collapsed, and we had to re-pour and shore up the entire, most of the existing floor from what we thought was going to be sound, that had to be reset up and re-poured. And then when they removed the internal ceilings in the building, we found a number of steel modifications that weren't documented anywhere, that either additions or something over the years, that work wasn't documented, so they didn't realize what was up there until they got all of the internal ceilings down, which caused rework of steel and a delay in scheduling.
So they bid these jobs without checking this out first, or is it strictly done by as-built? So how do they not know it's there and they're bidding a job? That's my question.
Well, trust me, that has been a hot topic and a very heated discussion with the committee and the contractor and the engineer. But unfortunately, we weren't going to go through it wasn't decided, it wasn't discussed about ripping the whole ceiling down and all the walls out to do that kind of investigatory work up front. easy to say right here that we should have, but it wasn't done.
And in my eyes, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not involved in, involved in construction, but I'm not involved in the bidding process, but the contractor certainly does have the responsibility to know what he's bidding and has the right to inspect the property and to make sure. So, it's, in hindsight, they should have, but that's not our fault, All right, I'm just rebutting a few.
I don't disagree with you, and I'm here. We have had numerous heated, I don't want to get into what these meetings have been like, but I assure you,
you've been on top
your
of it.
position has been communicated on this job. The reality is it's where it is, and at this point, we can leave the date as the end of July, and the liquidated damage threat could be there, that the town council can act afterwards. But there's going to be, as we wrap this project up, some things that I think I can negotiate better with Tower Construction, extending that negotiation with them, that we move the date out, because they have definitely a great argument for at least 4 to 5 weeks. And I think they would win in a legal case to get out to September 15th, no problem. So I think if we go back to them right now with that new deadline date, we will get more out of it from Tower Construction than what we won't win when you go back for the liquidated damages, in my opinion.
Damages over them is not gonna give you some leverage?
No, they don't, they feel that they claim they've already spoken to council, and they're not concerned about losing or paying liquidated damages.
And have we had counsel or solicitor or anything look into any of this at all? Do we have a legal team over there, or do we using our town solicitor?
We use our town solicitor. He has not been involved in this discussion. I can tell you, as the chair of the committee, they would probably call me as their first witness, to be perfectly honest with you, because these delays were unforeseen. And while there might have been some weeks that we could all question how much they were out there, I don't know how we can measure that and determine if they were at fault or not, in my opinion.
Mayor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, first of all, thanks for coming in tonight, appreciate it.
Certainly.
If the council votes to extend the time, which may be completely viable, what are the cost overruns, if any?
There were cost overruns were coming in under the 12 million. Is that your question, or?
Well, yes and no. That's good to know. We're coming in under the 12 million, but with all this additional work, Tower Construction has got to be looking for cost overruns.
Yeah, I don't have the breakdown, but I think there was about 250,000 in change orders that have been approved to date, that were all part of it. And
Yep.
they're all obviously documented.
They all come before your committee
Absolutely.
for approval?
Absolutely.
And do they come with a breakdown for material, man hours,
Yes.
stuff like that?
Yes. We have a change order log that has all of the value, what it was related to, what the cause was, what the cost was, when it was approved, that we could provide. That's
Because the whole project was value engineered, correct? Before they started?
absolutely.
Okay.
And there were a number of things, and if you saw the change log, if you were interested in seeing that you wouldn't believe what has come up on this project.
Well, I'm not sure I'm interested in seeing it now, but I would like to clarify for the council that those change orders are available if any member of the council would like to see them and review those change orders.
Every change is scrutinized and battled back and forth for, in some cases, too long, to make sure that it's the right value and that it's legitimate, that they're looking for it.
And the other part of what you talked about in the very beginning that caught my ear is that there were delays in permitting from our own town agencies. That almost sounds like an oxymoron statement when I make it, but I know that you're telling me the truth, so I know it's a true statement.
Mr. Wazika, I don't know if you want to comment on that or if that's.
No, he's absolutely correct. There were some issues in acquiring some of those permits. Mr. Finnegan got me involved at one point on some of it, so it was there was some delays on our part from our own departments.
Well, you stated that there's
Okay.
a good argument that they have 4 weeks worth of, I would be inclined to go to 4 weeks, but we have to hold them to they made an agreement with us to have this done by a certain date. And it's just not an open-ended contract in my eyes. And I would be inclined to give them 4 weeks and come back to us again, prove it's our fault, because they have a responsibility to pay a fine if they don't make the date. And I'm just not inclined to give up that fine. I mean, winter conditions were here, they knew it when they bid it. I mean, all these things, and I'm sure a lot of unforeseen factors that came up, but they have a responsibility of making sure before they bid, of looking over the job and making sure what's in there before they bid. So something tells me they didn't do their due diligence to find out, what was in there. Obviously, our failure of not getting permits out is not a good thing. But you said you stated 4 to 5 weeks of our.
I think I stated that they, no question, 4 to 5 weeks, they'll definitely be able to, without question, get someone to agree that that's legit. In my opinion, the September 15th is the right date. And I hear what you're saying. I disagree with you, having been through every minute of every change order, of every project, of every detail of this project. And while I understand what you're saying, and that's your prerogative, and we don't have to come back in another month, you guys, the council can make a decision after the project's completed. We don't have to put them on notice. The liquidated damages will stand. I just would have preferred to go back to Tower and say, here's the date. Now let's just get this finished off.
Look, I respect your opinion. I know you've worked hard doing this job, and I certainly do respect your opinion. I'm just bothered by the fact that, that these things have came up, and it's just their responsibility in my eyes. But certainly, if you think that September 15th is the right thing to do, is there anybody else in the council that has any comments, any questions on this? Yes, Deb, go ahead.
I just have a question. We moved from July 28th to August 15th, and now we're moving to September 15th. Is that correct?
We never moved to August 15th.
No, that was my
that's-
issue. That was my issue. It should have just been the September 15th.
Because I
date.
see this in the resolution that we're reading before
We're going to
us.
modify that. It's just going to move it to the September 15th date that's in there. We're going to remove the August date out of there and
Remove
just
the August.
move it to September 15th.
Okay, so we're moving from July 28th to September 15th. Is that what we're saying?
That's what I recommend.
Okay. I do respect your recommendations. I remember you talked about this at the last meeting in June, about the same thing. My concern is that we have not really seen any kind of written reports. In other words, all of a sudden, it seemed like all of a sudden in June, we heard about these issues, and, I understand that there were issues. I think it would have been better if we had had some kind of a heads up as we go along. I'd like to see some kind of a status report. Are we getting status reports, Mr. Wazeeka? I don't know. Can we get any kind of midterm status reports if we want to move it out to September 15th? Can we get some kind of report
Yeah,
maybe
we
around
can.
August 15th?
We will get you one from thing. Everything is documented through the building committee. I've been at a lot of the meetings. The chief, the colonel is at almost everyone. Mr. Robillard is at everyone. I mean, the representation is always there. I've never been asked for a progress report on this, or otherwise I would have provided one. I will have one for the next meeting, and where everything is at that point.
Because our next meeting is basically at the end of August. So it'd be good if we could get a progress report then so we can see how close we're going to be to the September 15th deadline. And then if-
DHS is moving in September 15th.
Well, we hope so. Is that definite?
Yes.
A progress report would still be helpful. Thank you.
Deb, go ahead.
I just have, Ed, this question's for you. Now that this is being pushed out to September 15th, we have DHS is over at the Biocide building.
Correct.
Yes, and that lease that we had with them expired on May 7th, so we have a month-to-month contract beginning May 6th.
Correct.
So that is $6,806.87 a month. Those additional funds, is that coming out of the $12 million bond?
No, it is not. It is not. It will be coming out of the DHS budget in areas that it's available, and if not, any additional would come out of, with a resolution in front of the council to cover it out of the contingency fund if need be on that. They will not be coming out of the bond.
Are the town's contingency fund?
Yes, if need be. Like I said, there's savings on electric, gas, and all of those that are not being expended, so there should be enough to cover it, and if not, like I said, there'd be a few bucks, a few dollars that would come out of the contingency fund if need be. So there's funding there to cover the additional month or so, 2 months of time on this.
And in my eyes, that's one of the reasons why, I feel as though penalty is, we have other expenses involved. Anyway, with that being said, Mike, you have more?
Yep, I just have one other question.
Now,
I'm sorry.
I'm surprised at that date because we were never scheduled to go back in before July, so.
Yeah,
the
it's
lease-
just the
the lease-
contract, the lease
and-
that we have.
What happened was the lease started, there was a delay in the whole process, but they had already started the process on the lease. So the lease got kicked in earlier than the building did, unfortunately.
But either way, it was still a month-to-month at that
Correct.
part of the lease that we were paying
Yep.
anyway.
Okay, you have another question?
And I just have one other question with CCAP and the food and clothing over at DHS. Are they still, that contract ended with their rental December?
They're in there. They're in
2000
they're in the building on MacArthur already.
Oh, they're already in?
They're already over there.
They-
The clothing hasn't opened up, the food bank has, but they've got their stuff is moved into there.
So they were out by
They're out.
January
They're correct.
1st?
They're out.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because their contract ended.
All of those
the-
costs for the food bank, including moving it, was all handled under CCAP. That did not come from town funds on the food bank portion of that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify it.
Okay, are there any other questions to the council?
Thank you, Bill.
I just have one, I mean, as far as the date, the September 15th, that was a negotiated date with the builder, with Tower
Yes.
Construction, so that's there, it's done, And as far as, like I said, pushing it back, I know we had those issues up front, which in my mind, and the additional time is not so much a concern for me because of the nature of the delays. So, that's some more questions I got.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion.
We have a motion for approval?
Approval.
We have a motion
Yep.
for approval.
I'll second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, D2, please.
Wed versus Town of Coventry, case number KC-2019-0307 and case number KC 2018-0567. Consideration of and vote on remand of matter to planning board.
Okay, this was a matter that we had discussed in executive session, and it was a good discussion. I guess, the chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Second the motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion does not carry. Okay, item number 3. Madam Clerk.
Award of contract for emergency equipment rental services to Rambone Disposal Service, it says.
Okay, Kevin, I guess you got some information on that for us?
From Rambone?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last month, I came to you when we went out to bid for emergency services. We received 2 bidders, the only 2 bidders we received. This is for reimbursement for any FEMA disaster. We will not get reimbursement from FEMA without the contractors that we utilized being under contract with the town. So, looking to have 3 bidders, we went back out to bid, seeking an additional bidder or more. If we would have had 6 bidders, I would come to you with 6 more bidders. The more the merrier. But we had one person, Rambone, who's done emergency services for us in the past during the snow event back in 2014 that we had. So we're asking for this for the council to add Rambone to the emergency service list.
If I remember right, we do this every year,
Yeah, now we're gonna be every 2 years. So
every 2 years. Oh, yeah, and I remember in the past, there was different contracts in case of emergency, where
Correct.
hurricane season, winter. All right, we've had a chance to look at this. Are there any questions from the council before we look for a motion?
Mr. President, I have a question. Do we usually put people on a list for a 2-year period? Because I see 2019, 2020, and 2020 to 21. Is it usual to have a 2-year
Yes,
list?
yes,
Is that our usual practice?
it is, or more, sometimes 3 years. Okay, are there any other questions?
I just have a question because I did a little research on it because I didn't know what this was. We had a 3-year contract with Walter E. Reynolds, and that was awarded on 9/9/13 and expired on 16. So who did we have from 16 to 19? Do you know?
I do not have that in front of me, but we did just award last month to Walter Reynolds and one other company. I don't have that file in front of me. So we have those two companies, and we're looking to add a third company. Again, there's no cost to the town. This is for us having contractual obligations with firms so that we can get reimbursed from FEMA in the event of an emergency disaster.
FEMA requires you to have 3 contractors on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in the past, it was Walter Reynolds and Sakosha
There you go. Secocia, thank you. Better memory than I do.
in the past.
Yep.
Is that the only time that you're going to get reimbursed by FEMA? Would you use them for any other?
No, this is only for emergency services. That is going to be a FEMA declared disaster.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion?
We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Actually, excuse me, Mr. President, I'd like to ask that we table this one. I've got a couple of issues that have come up in reference to the bid on this, and I'd like to take a look at it before we put it back in front of the council.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
I'd like to remove it from the, I'd like to table it.
Okay,
Motion to table?
we have a motion to table, we have a second? Second. We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it, motion tabled. I'm sorry.
Are we on D4 now? It happened so fast and I didn't hear the motion.
Yes, it was a motion to table D4, correct.
Fine, thank you.
What is your vote?
My vote is to table
Okay,
that.
we have, okay, yes. Oh, I don't waste time. All right, so, motion carries. Item table. Madam Clerk, D5, please.
Approval of sewer tie-in, comprehensive community action, Incorporated, 191 MacArthur Boulevard, Plat 56, Lot 14.
Okay, Mr. Zika, do you have any comments on that, or?
It's been approved by the sewer. It's definitely needed. And just awaiting your approval if so desired.
Sewer subcommittee meeting? Okay,
Yes.
if there's no questions, Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, the next item, Madam Clerk, is item D. Item D6.
Affirming the purchase and outfitting of police utility vehicle for $21,361.62 using seizure funds.
Oh, yes, sir. Will you kind of give us an explanation? We did receive a picture and,
Good evening. I'm here for the resolution for the purchase of the Polaris UTV. With the purchase of this vehicle, it's going to be primarily for rescue, search, rescue, and removal of injured people in either the bike path or the trails that are through town. Currently, this year alone, we've had one lost hiker over in the Maxwell Maze area, which is over on 102. And we also routinely, during the year, have different walkways that go into the woods that we need to go and find them. Also, for the primary reason, the police department doesn't have a presence in the bike path right now. There's 9.5 miles of bike path, and I think that the police department needs to be out there showing people during the weekends that we have a presence out there. So we can use that vehicle to go onto the bike path, same as DPW in different towns, and actually just be out there during the time. That particular unit has a rescue skid on the back, so we can work with the fire department and put injured hikers and on there and actually get them out of the woods. I personally had to carry injured dirt bike rider off of the Arcadia Woods, the trails over there on Hockney Hill Road. We had to carry him out to a helicopter. This would avoid that type of situation and get them to safety quicker.
do you have a trailer for this that we would be towing with? You know?
That's exactly what we're going to be doing. Right now, we have a perfect location where we have access to the bike path, but we will need a trailer. Last year or the year before, we actually went into Exeter. We had one of our residents that got hurt, lost in the woods a week,
we recall.
multi-day, where that would have come into use. The good thing about this particular unit is we're going to be using our drug seizure money, so it will be no cost to the town. We already have the funds available, and we'd be using those funds to purchase that. So drug interdiction seizure funds would be used, and we could purchase that.
I mean, I personally think this is long overdue. I mean, I think it's a great idea to have a presence in that bike path, you know, and if someone does get hurt, you have a way to expedite it. Does anybody have any questions for the council?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Cody.
What kind of machine is it?
The Polaris Ranger 900. XP
900?
That particular is a stock photo of it, but Polaris runs a government and defense contract. So what they'll do is specifically for military and fire department and police departments. So it's upgraded suspension on there to carry that rescue skid on the back.
I see it has a rescue seat, and that's all well and good, but it also has a very short utility bed on it.
Yes.
The bed is absolutely not long enough to be able to put a stretcher in if you have to immobilize somebody on a backboard, but I see an apparatus that's mounted into the bed.
Yes.
Does that apparatus extend to be able to carry?
It does, sir. What that is that's a Stokes basket, which rescue uses, fire departments use in order to carry people out of the woods. And what that is actually, it's broken in half on there. It's made for compact. You could put a full-size one on there, but that's made so we could fit it in the garage better.
Right, it folds out.
It becomes completely folds out. We can lay a person on there and it attaches right to that stretcher.
Yep.
So, you can use it on that.
I'm going to assume it's an automatic with electronic power steering.
Yes, in fact, the power steering was an additional feature.
On the fly, four-wheel drive, because it's a Polaris. My only other question is, and this may sound foolish, but I do a lot of riding off-road. What training are our officers going to receive in the safe operation of this before they're put out using it to do rescues? Because with the hard cab on it and the full glass with the roll-down windows, it's going to be very top-heavy.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know in the state of New Hampshire, they make you can take it online, but there's a safety course that you have to take before you're able to operate these. Even the conservation officers have to take the same safety course that the public has to take.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just wondering what we're gonna
Absolutely.
provide for our officers.
Right. Well, just like our boat, the ATV that doesn't run anymore, and bicycles, any type of special thing we do training on, but we also have policies set forth on it. Those are all going to be taken into consideration. As far as training courses, I don't know if DM would offer one for us. I know Situate Police uses theirs for their special, for the Situate Art Festival, and they have their search and rescue, similar to what they have. We could follow up and find out what they use for training, but there's always policies in anything that we do, and
Yeah,
there's training that's
they got
going
a
to come.
six-wheel Gator. That's what they got.
They have a John Deere. In fact, we went up there and test drove that one, and that's actually a four-door one, so it's a longer.
Yep.
This particular one's going to be better for our trails, getting into these trails, the smaller trails in through here. That's why the colonel went with this.
I don't know anything about the trails in Coventry.
Yeah.
I don't ride here, it's not legal. But I do know the machine, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
the only reason I had questions.
100%, and that's all going to be taken into consideration.
Okay, are there any other questions? Yes, Ms. Baker.
I couldn't hear you when you said, does this come with a trailer or do you have to purchase one?
We will have to purchase a trailer.
Okay.
That, as of right now, that's not on the schedule for that. Right now, we can get access to the bike path without a trailer. We're gonna look into options as far as trailer or even probably donation. We could look into those options once we get it.
Okay, do you know how much the federal government seizure fund, do you have remaining funds
We
in
have
there?
approximately 125,000 in there.
125,000?
Correct.
And is that after this or is that with?
That's as of right now an approximate.
Okay.
So we'd be just around about 100.
That's really not big money for that machine.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing was with Polaris, because of that particular program, they gave a significant discount. And if we
That's really not big money for that machine.
It's not. And just as a person that's on the bike path all the time, it's gonna be big. People see us out there, just like the boat during, when we're out there on the boat on Johnson's Pond, people love having us out there, so.
I don't know. And And just as a point of clarification, our normal-sized SUVs certainly do not fit on the bike path.
No,
for
the
the
only
most-
thing that we have access to, and what we have to do is kind of leapfrog from where we have access points through it. So there's all safety gates, and we can unlock those safety gates and get a fire truck down there right now. They all have keys to that. However, it's the delay, the keys are over there. We could get cars down there.
Yeah.
This would be a better option.
Yeah, but-
Right,
and then these and then just getting into the woods as well too,
And
into
that's-
some of the paths.
And we also have Parker Woodland out on Maple Valley
Right.
Road. I've walked those trails. We have an autistic gentleman that lives out over there, walked away from his house. It's those type of trails where even gonna benefit.
Yeah, you'd never get to.
Greg, just so you'll know.
Yeah.
Most of the gates on the bike path in Coventry are between 67 and 72 inches wide.
Yeah.
Which you can get a smaller SUV down.
Yeah.
But this machine only measures 62 inches
Yeah.
from outside of the tire to outside of the tire on the
Yeah.
other side.
Right.
So much easier accessing the gate
Right.
and something like
Access.
this.
And then again, so it's easier, and then again, for the
Absolutely.
for the trails, you'd never get a full-size vehicle.
I have
on any
talked
of
Well,
those
you
trails.
could if you didn't own it, but probably wouldn't be worth having once
Yeah,
you got
that's
it out.
once it got back, you're right, it's just not
And-
practical.
And also, we could work with the fire department, with the EMTs there, and have them given medical aid out in the field as we're bringing them back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a good deal myself. I think it's a long time overdue, actually. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
But anyway, with that being said, Chair, entertain a motion.
Oh, definitely make the motion.
Okay, we have a
I'll do
motion.
that. I'll second
We
it.
have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, item D7, please.
Affirming award of bid for hot patch for DPW.
Okay, Kevin, I think you're up again.
Good evening. This is the sole bid from our sole materials that did not get awarded at our last council meeting in June. So respectfully before the council at this point, this is for a primary award to D'Amber Construction with a secondary award to Pastriac Asphalt, depending on availability of materials.
This is strictly for hot patch.
This is different for hot patch, berms, and such.
Okay, any questions from the council? Okay,
What do we do? Yeah, coal patch.
Coal patch was already approved at the last meeting because that went to somebody else, but the hot patch,
Through Johnston?
Johnson Asphalt, yes,
For coal patch?
correct.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last meeting.
I know.
My apologies.
all right,
I
no
need to
problem. Then
recuse myself.
the chair will entertain a motion.
At least for the primary, I mean, I can vote on a secondary, but it's one motion
One
for
motion.
that, so I need to remove myself.
Okay, so now the chair will entertain a motion for the bid for hot patch.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second.
Second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Aye. Okay, ayes. Motion
Thank you very
carries.
much.
Ayes have it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 8, Madam Clerk.
Resolution authorizing the interim town manager to enter into a sewer rate study with Raffles of Natick, Mass. for $29,454 to be financed through the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Okay, Mr. Manager, if you would please, it was quite an extensive reading here for all these proposals.
Yes, it was. Mr. Arnett, the finance director, got in contact with all these companies, brought them in. We did interviews with all three of the, we actually had a fourth interview, and we were never able to get a quote from them. This is a professional service, and as such, doesn't require to go out to a formal RFP process. So we did the interviews, looked at what they've done, also looking at the price. And out of the three, Reftelis is that company we determined as the best to do this. They are a nationwide company that does nothing but sewer, water, wastewater consulting, rate studies. This is their business. They're the largest in the country, highly regarded. And there's an extra benefit on this one with the gentleman that would actually be out of the Natick office. We used to work with and did work with Mr. Woodcock, who did all of our earlier rate studies. So he's got all the historic data, all of that. This isn't just a rate study, though, that we're looking for. We're also going to be receiving a 5-year, 10-year, 15 and 20-year plan moving forward for financing and maintaining on the sewer system. What we're going to end up with, the application, the program that they develop, and all of the data goes in. Every year, we'll be able to update the numbers going in for expenses, anticipated revenues, all of that, and then develop our own rates each and every year if we want to, or we can bring them back in to assist us in that. But this is it's more than just a simple rate study, which we've done in the past. Like I said, this is encompassing all of the areas that we need. The financial plan, the 5-year plan, 10-year plan is something that is a dire need in this town for the sewer enterprise fund, and this will take care of it. You'll note you have 3 bids on this. Reftelis was actually the cheapest one out of the 3, slightly cheaper, the $29,454, and they guarantee that will be the maximum amount. It could come in actually a little less, and if it is, then we will be charged less ultimately if it comes in with less hours needed. The other 2 that we have was for Woodcock and Curran, and if I remember correctly, let me just check on that. Woodcock and Curran's estimate was $32,385, and B&E, which they wouldn't give us a straight maximum amount. They gave us an hourly rate of $250 for the principal, $200 for consultant, and $50 an hour for staff.
I did see that.
And because of that, I didn't, on top of, Reftelis has the most experience out of all of them. This is what they do, and what they're going to produce for us is going to be something that's going to help us to move forward with that sewer enterprise fund, give us the ability to look forward, have those 5-year, 10-year plans in place that we don't have now. It'll be done by them. They will also assist us in providing the information out to the ratepayers prior to any new rates being instituted throughout the system. So it's gonna analyze the entire process, all of our revenues and expenses, and come up with the proper numbers, something we woefully need that we haven't had in probably, I think it was 5 years, 6 years was the last time we actually had a rate that matched up to what a rate study said.
And naturally, once the study's done, they'll be glad to come in and do.
Oh, they will be
quick
coming in. Oh, yeah.
presentation.
They will be coming in and doing a presentation in front of the council for the public.
Now, this is long overdue, like you said, and this is one step we're taking to try to better the sewer program that, needs to be repaired. And, so this is a step, and I appreciate you putting the work and the effort into, to getting this done. It's long overdue. So, are there any other questions from anybody in the council?
No.
Yes, go ahead, then.
I don't see the contract in here.
The contract, again, we will do the finalized contract and approved by the solicitor prior to signing it. You're just authorizing so we can negotiate and finalize it. But it spells out all of the work and the scope of the activities are already spelled out in the proposal. It'll just be formalized in contract form once we decide to go, if you decide to go with them.
Okay, what would the length of time for this? I mean, are we giving them, 6 months? Is
No,
this a
no,
year?
no.
How long is?
Yeah, I think October is.
Yeah, because I don't see any time. That's why I'm asking.
Right, if we start right away and they are available to begin the process right away, we're looking at a 2 to 3 month process to have at least the basics all in play. Then we'll finalize, tweak everything. We'll come in, show the council what we've got, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, it's about a 3 month process. This is not going to be lengthy to get this done.
Okay, and this is coming from the sewer fund, the 29,000.
Correct. This will come from the sewer enterprise fund,
What
not the general fund.
Okay, and what is the balance in the Coventry Sewer Enterprise Fund right now?
John?
Currently, it's $17,000. However, there is an $18,000 transfer pending. I found
I mean, how much pending? I'm sorry.
18,000.
18,000.
So there'll be enough. There'll be enough to cover that cost.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I just had one more. On page 81 of 203, on the back page, it said they can help with specific outreach materials such as bill inserts or full marketing campaigns at an additional cost. And then underneath it says meetings required, 1 teleconference meeting to discuss outreach materials, 2 in-person presentations to town council, and 1 in-person model training session for town staff. Is that an additional cost, or is that part
No,
of
that's
the
part-
29?
that's- John?
So the training portion is actually included in it. That's absolutely definite. The initial piece coming forward and doing the presentation, that's also included. The additional costs that they're talking about is separate and above. They also offer services, for example, creating letters to the public and other outreach materials that we could use them in the future for pending need.
Okay.
But as I read it, the included in their proposal is at least 1 to 2 presentations before the town council, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you got a question?
I don't have a question, I just have a statement that all of these companies have very impressive dossiers, and
They do.
Their experience and qualifications are unbelievable, and any one of them would fit the bill, but I can see why Raftullis is,
Not the last one, by the hour.
Very impressive.
Yeah, that was the only
Well,
thing, but he had an impressive resume. the last-
You know,
My only problem with them was the hourly rate.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the bid, but I
I
mean,
don't
the
want to say nothing. We
quali-
got
the
other employees that we
qualifications.
pay by the hour. Let's just try to get a contract.
Okay, so there was no.
I'm sorry, I had one
Yeah,
more
go ahead,
question I
don't be
meant to
shy.
follow up with John. The 18,000 that's pending, that's gonna go into the sewer enterprise fund, what is that?
So that was something that I found during just review of the debt service reserve funds from Wells Fargo that holds the funds off to the side. I did a look back through the past few years and found that the monies were essentially weren't captured correctly, we'll just say. So because they weren't captured correctly, I had a full look back done on it and realized that those funds should be dispersed into the sewer fund rather than the general fund where they were journal entered.
Okay, so
I found that it's
that
gonna get moved over.
18,000 is in, somewhere in our general fund?
Correct. It was just a journal entry for it, so I'm gonna take the cash from the general fund, put it over into the sewer fund where it's properly supposed to be. I've been in contact with Mary Delator from Wells Fargo, the person who's the vice president in charge of all of that, and we've done the full dollar amount. And I've already talked to the auditor about the journal entries, and he's fully aware. So once we start up again, that's the first foundation we're going with.
Okay, so once the Coventry Sewer Enterprise Fund will be depleted once we do the sewer rate study.
That it will be it'll have a very low balance. However, we're starting up with the sewer collections and the sewer use. The sewer use and sewer assessments are coming in as well. It's just starting to turn it on. So the Attorney General's letter was to state to start using it. So this is the first step into starting to use it. I figured we should start using it with 2 very important pieces. One, this rate study, and there's also a flow study we're also looking at. So those 2 pieces will create that foundation to move forward. And then we can basically start using the fund like it's supposed to be used. according to the Auditor
John,
General.
you mentioned there were 2 things, the sewer rate study, and what was the other thing that you
It's
wanted?
a flow study. It's not on the agenda
Flow-
as of right.
flow
It's
study?
called a flow study.
flow
It's
study,
just part.
okay.
It's just part of checking flows and meters and things of that nature to ensure what our actual use is. That's just some other piece of general operations.
Well, you need to know your flow rates to make sure that West Warwick's not overcharging.
Correct.
Bada bing.
Got to know
Right,
the
so
exact
you
amount.
need to know your flow rates to make sure that West Warwick is charging you correctly and
Correct.
not overcharging. So if our flow rates don't match with theirs, we'll at least have, from a reputable company, we would at least have a report to say, no, wait a minute. When's the last time you did a flow rate on Coventry?
So-
Because we just did one and
Yes,
you're
sir.
overcharging us.
Yes, sir.
So have we ever done a flow study?
Flow studies have happened in the past. I can't tell you off the top of my head when they were. They happen occasionally.
I couldn't find anything on when the last one was, go through some of the paperwork, but
I believe they're sporadic in certain locations, not as targeted as what we're doing and what we're looking at doing now.
Yeah, because I think there was, 2011, 2012, if I recall, there was a partial flow study done.
And I don't wanna get into
It wasn't in-depth and comprehensive, but there was a flow study
Right.
done. I want to say Weston and Sampson provided us with numbers.
So I don't want to get too much into the flow study itself, but it's
All right, so this one here
Piece
really
of
has
it.
to do with
The rates.
the
Rate
rate
study.
study for the actual
let's get to
charges
that, and if
and
there's no other questions on that, the chair will entertain a motion
I'll make that motion
Have
to
a motion.
approve.
to approve. Do we have a second?
I second the motion to authorize the interim town manager to enter into a sewer rate study with Raftelis of Natick, Mass. for $29,454.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, D9, please.
Resolution authorizing the interim town manager to sign and upgrade renewal contract for tax assessment data services with Vision Government Solutions at a cost of $100,400.
And, Mr. Manager, I'm sure you have a thorough explanation of this. Yes.
I do, along with our tax assessor, Chris Celeste also. What this is our current vendor is Vision. They have handled our taxes. Chris, why don't you come up to the podium, please? They've handled our tax assessment in software. It was formerly Opal. Vision bought them out, but they've been our vendor for 20-plus years. We've got, I think, 24 years of data of every year since we've started with them. Collecting the data, doing the rates, doing the taxes, doing the collection. So we've got a lot of data there. They are our vendor. Because Rhode Island is so small in the way things are done in this state, there are very few vendors to do this. So to try to switch off and go to a different vendor and get all of our data converted over so we have it is, we found there's one other actual application that we're aware of that's in play, that's viable. We actually looked at it. We did a demo with it. We had them convert 1 year of data, or attempt to convert 1 year of data.
Attempt
Chris?
would be a better.
Tell them, once you give them what happened on that.
So this company that manager is referring to is QDS. They do have a pretty good presence in the state of Connecticut. However, tax laws from state to state vary significantly. And so they came to us and said, we can come in here, we'll convert your data, we'll modify our system to do Rhode Island. We want you guys to beta test it. And so they came in, guns blazing, typical sales kind of thing, and it's gonna be awesome. So we said, all right, let's take a look. Here's some data, convert it, and let us see how it looks and how everything works, and match it up to ours, run the reports, kind of see if everything's jiving. Unfortunately, they didn't really get over the finish line. I mean, they gave us, basically their Connecticut product with sort of Rhode Island data shoehorned into it. It didn't report properly. It was cumbersome to work with. It was overly complicated for what we need. Monique, our collector, did the lion's share of the testing on it and just had an awful time with that. So that option kind of became sort of null. And then the only other even possible option is our current vendor for our revaluation, our CAMA software, is now attempting to build a tax administration collection product as well. However, they have nothing right now except
A dream.
going to do it, and therefore, Vision, on the other hand, myself and the collector Monique have been to multiple meetings with them. They've demoed the product to us. It's not complete, however, it is leaps and bounds beyond either of the other two options that we have at this point. Also, I mean, the thing with Vision is it's their product right now that we have. It's a very antiquated system that it's built in. However, they're very familiar with the data. They're very familiar with Rhode Island tax law. They've been maintaining this older piece of software for us for decades, and almost all the other communities around. I mean, let's also go back a notch. They basically have, I'd say, 90 to 95% of the Rhode Island clients as far as the tax administration and collections software package. Coventry included as well. The reason that there's an expense is that this is a major overhaul, kind of a clean sheet design where they're rebuilding this in a modern software language, and they're going to do a modern database style, and they're going to convert our data. It's all included in that. It also includes utility billing, collections, and tax administration, and they're going to keep our maintenance fees the same. like one- yeah.
Currently, the current version of Vision that we have is written in a development package called Foxfire,
Visual Fox Pro.
Visual Foxfire, that Microsoft stopped supporting about 15 years ago.
Right.
It's a flat database. This thing is just horrendous.
I'm
The-
just concerned with how long is the new program going to last? How long have we had Vision?
We've had this for over 20 years.
So you don't
This-
foresee, it changing again in the near future?
This is a necessity because the inability to do the kinds of things we need to do. An example of which is even with our utility billing, we cannot do multiple rates, interest rates on money. It has to be a single. That's why with the approval coming up later on the finalizing, if it happens, we've averaged it because we don't have the ability. It's all going to be SQL based. It's going to be extremely fast, reliable. We are currently running XP machines on our counters, which XP, if you guys are aware, I mean, we're talking 15 years ago, and they're the only things it'll run on the counter machines. We fight with this thing. Myself and Cody almost every day to keep it running, keep it operational. Because it's a continuation and just an upgrade of the current software, current provider. That's why I'm looking to not do an RFP on this and just do an extension of what we have. If you want to do an RFP, we could do it. We're going to come back with the same people that we've got, and we're not going to get it at the price that we're going to get it as, because Chris has been able to really knock them down. This originally, give me the number that it
They were
started.
upwards of about 125,000 would be their list price on this, and then because we are if we could sign on by the end of the month and also help them with a little bit of beta testing at the beginning, that's why we got them down to plus the one pay as opposed to payment plan. This is how we got them down from the 125-ish down to about 100 even. So we've saved 25-30% off of the price.
You guys are absolutely the experts on the computers, I don't know one from the other, so if it's telling me, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you talk about this antiquated equipment that we have, and I know we do. I mean, you're Ed the IT guy, so I gotta go by what you say.
No, you don't have to.
Well, no, do we have the capability to do the upgrade through Vision's cloud servers, or are we going to have to pay them that $4,000 a year in annual maintenance for them to come actually do an in-person every year at an additional cost of $4,000 over and above the $100,400 that we're giving them now? Look at paragraph 4. It says, installation of the upgrades. Vision will install the upgrades on Vision's cloud service if the customer elects for an on-premises installation on its own servers. Customer must provide hardware that meets the minimum requirements set forth by Vision and pay an additional $4,000 per year in annual maintenance.
That's if we need them to come in to do it. We will do it ourselves on our own. We're still talking back and forth on which way, whether or not we're going to do on-site or cloud. More than likely, we're going to do on-site, and we will be doing those upgrades ourselves.
Right, because with the equipment we currently have, I don't imagine we can do the upgrades through their cloud.
No, we don't want to do cloud-based. I'm not looking to do cloud-based on this at this point. I prefer to have it local. I don't like relying
You
on.
want local control.
I want local control. I want local backups. I want all of the things we need. Cloud is great, but in the event we lose internet, we lose connectivity, we're down for the count. We can't collect. So that's why. So it will be local, and we will be doing our own upgrades on these things anytime there's a new update on it.
But they still hold the licensing rights on it.
This is something that's in
The
software
upgrade shall
licensing.
be deemed licensed pursuant to and shall be subject to the license set forth in the original agreements.
Nobody owns software anymore. You're renting it. That's all you do. You're leasing it. You don't own this stuff. This is unfortunately the way that it's going.
But my question is, can we do the upgrades in-house on software that's licensed to them?
We do it all the time now, yeah. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, with that being said,
Now, let me just explain, just one more thing I want to explain. The funding for this is actually coming out of the 19 budget. We've encumbered the money in there. If you approve it, we'll be able to pay this out of last year's budget. It is not going to affect the upcoming budget. So that's where this is funded through. Money set aside, and basically being held right now in the 19 budget for this. We had discussed, I think I brought this up with some of the council members, if not all, that we were looking at being able to use some of any anticipated revenue that was available in the 19 budget to bring down any expenses or allow us to do some things, as opposed to bring it into the FY20 budget. So this money is sitting in 19, and we're going to use it out of 19. It won't be 20's budget that's affected by this upgrade. That's one of the reasons why we're looking to do it now and be able, because that money's available. It won't be much longer if we can't keep it encumbered for too long.
So my question is, if it's sitting in the 19 budget, in which line item or category is it sitting? Is it sitting in the tax assessor's budget or someone else's budget?
And it's sitting in the contingency fund.
It's sitting in the contingency fund.
Correct.
That
Where you would
300,000
approve moving some of those funds a couple of meetings ago into that. Those excess funds that we had, we've moved them into there, and that's where it's going to come from there.
So how much money do we have in contingency right now?
It was over $300,000 last I checked. It was just around right at 300,000
When-
flat. just
That was in
over.
the 19 budget, or is it carried over to
19.
the 20 budget?
It's only in the 19 budget.
No.
just
That's
ask.
correct.
Nope. Our preliminary numbers, again, they're not audited, they're not finalized. Even with these proposed spending that we've got in here, we are looking at about 500,000 in revenue over expenses from last year. We've had a little bit better than expected collection rate, and we also were able to reduce down some of our costs in the budget by maintaining some control over expenditures. So we've actually got a good year with that excess funds, and we want to be able to take advantage and help out the upcoming budget by paying for a couple of these things out of last year's budget is what we're looking to do.
Okay, and Debbie, you got a couple questions? You got a question?
Yeah, no, Ann asked one of them, so now we know where the money's coming. I did, just what Gary was saying, with our equipment, with our computers, do we need to buy new computers, any hardware? To
It's
be
my
able to put
understanding
this
that
software?
It's my understanding our hardware meets the requirements they need. Is that correct?
It does?
It does. We are also,
Jeez.
we are,
Lightning.
part of this year is also, we're gonna be replacing some of our servers are scheduled for replacement this year as well. But the current servers are more than adequate for what's needed for the application as it exists right now.
Yeah, that was something we went through that months ago when we first started
Yeah.
looking through all these different options that we had. We made sure that the hardware that we had would support their software.
Okay, thank you.
Last thing, you got a
Yeah,
question?
it was, one of them was on the hardware, but how big is our network of servers? How many servers do we have?
Well,
I defer to IT on that one. lot.
For these purposes,
Yep.
assessment and collection.
We currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 servers running on our network. 10, excuse me, one other one. We have 10 servers running on our network. Some are actually running virtual, which means they're actually running a couple of other servers in virtual mode, but physical servers, we have 10.
So tax assessment, tax collection, finance.
Every department has their own separate server. One of the things we did in the last major upgrade was we segregated all of these applications out into the departments out into their own to be able to keep, again, so they're running faster and they're not being bogged down. When I first got here, we had 2 servers for the entire town. Everything ran off it, and it was slow, to say the least. So we've, again, some of those are scheduled for upgrade this year. But yeah, there's 10.
2x2 networks. Right? So, but with that being said, with we're talking the hardware, right now it meets the needs, et cetera. What's the shape of, you said you've been, kind of.
We're constantly, we always upgrade. We always upgrade. We always work on replacing X number of desktops each year. We try to replace a couple of servers every year. The one area we need that we're looking at is we need to do a rewiring in this building. I've been here 15 years, and that's the original wire networking that was in here when I got here. That's something we want to get done. I don't know if we'll be able to do it this year. It may be next year, but that's on the planning.
But if we're doing
Yep.
a renewal,
Yep, we've got-
every
we've-
year of I mean, okay, we
Yep.
got 10, so if we're doing it over 3 years, how many are 3 or 4 new servers cost on an annual basis?
It all depends on what the hardware requirements are, or how big we gotta go with it. The ones that we made, that we
The
use for.
hardware requirements that they're gonna.
No, those will probably be about a $6,000-7,000. They're not high-end. It's not a high-end system. That's the thing.
All right,
Those
so
aren't
this
gonna
is
be
only a
outrageous.
This is only a portion of what's on the servers then? That's what you're saying?
No.
This software?
Like right now,
Yeah.
Opal, which is the original name from Vision, Opal runs on its own server. It's called a tax.
One server for this.
For this.
9 for everything else, right?
One server for this. Finance has their own server. Planning has their own server. The clerk's office has their own server. So we've got,
So all those servers will be able to, go into this server, so they're drawing.
the server-
Much better than it currently does, in fact.
the server the current tax server is only 2 years old, I think it is. I think the tax server is 2 years old. So that one is fine. We'll be able to upgrade on it and not have an issue at all.
Yeah, but, if money wasn't an object, and you had 2 really good, up-to-date mega servers, you could run everything off, every other department off of virtuals.
Oh, you could. And then the only problem with that you find, and one of my big issues with virtual, is if that box goes down, everything goes down.
Right.
So that's why I'm not big on putting too many virtuals on the same box. We have a system, our backup system is really cool, because what we can do is, in the event that we have a hardware failure, we can actually virtual hang the whole box as a virtual off of any system. So we could operate while we repair the hardware, and then dump the files back down and operate. So
Great.
we've got a lot of redundancy built into the system. If I had more money, we'd have but we work with what we've got.
Okay, with that being said, the chair, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, D10, please.
Resolution authorizing use of $95,000 of impact fees for integral radio communications for new police station.
Everybody gets a turn tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, sir, will you give us an explanation? I will read the resolution, but will you give us an explanation of it?
Yes, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lieutenant Matthew Blair from the Police Department. Obviously, we're respectfully requesting your consideration of approval of up to $95,000 in impact fees to fund this additional cost for the purchase of 4 Motorola MCC 7500 dispatch consoles. During the process of moving over to the new building and working on the dispatch center, the Motorola MCC 5500 console was decided upon during the winter of last year, 2018. These 4 consoles installation costs were budgeted at approximately $223,000. The 4 MCC 5500 consoles cost individually, total amount for the 4 was approximately $168,000, the additional amount obviously being installation costs. On June 24th, 2019, the Coventry Police Department was alerted to an end service support date of December 31st, 2021, just over 2 years from now, for this MCC 5500. I'll refer to them as the 5500 and the 7500 just for ease of getting through this. Should be just about another minute. The information that we received at that date was not shared prior to this date. So in June, just about a month ago, we received this information that the end life service date of these consoles would only be approximately 2 years. No information had been received prior. This was drastically under the typical 10-year service date for radios that are used with service and aftermarket supports that are typically offered through Motorola. Extensive research was then undertaken to find a suitable replacement, thanks to our dispatchers, particularly Lee Bissett, for obtaining the information. Avitech radios, which are new to the market, recently bought by Motorola in the Zetron consoles. 2 specific radio makers were identified and features that were not specifically designed for the radio system that we operate off, which is the Rhode Island Emergency Management Association. Our agency, their radio system was not fully functional with those two specific radios. The only suitable choice was then the 7500, the upgraded Motorola. This 7500 system allows for direct connectivity to Rhode Island EMA, fiber optic lines, and radio systems, which allow our dispatchers full control over the radio system. The officer safety and public safety tool would have been helpful even last week. Last Wednesday, we had an incident where there was a resident who was attempting to enter a burning structure with one of our officers. The resident had a lot of issues. The officer ended up on the ground with him. His radio was keying up repeatedly. Dispatch could not communicate with him. Officers that were responding to the area could not communicate with him. Obviously, creating a dangerous issue. Had we had this new system, the dispatcher would have then been able to take control of the system and been able to communicate with him and with other officers. Basically, that officer on the ground fighting with an individual, trying to prevent him from getting into a burning structure, took over the radio, and there was no other way to communicate with anyone. So obviously a public safety issue. Numerous Rhode Island police and fire departments all utilize this current 7500 console with excellent reviews, and obviously it's thoroughly and completely supported through Rhode Island EMA Communications. The additional cost of the four 7500 consoles is approximately $267,000. This amount will obviously exceed the $600,000 budget for police communications at the new Police Department and Human Services complex by approximately $93,900. The 10-year lifespan of this communication system that is required, obviously when impact fees are utilized, is easily achievable with routine hardware and software upgrades that would typically take place when that system's utilized.
So you see a 10-year shelf life on this?
Absolutely.
Because I'd be concerned about it, coming up. How long was your last one, the 5500s? How long were they?
We currently have the Zetron consoles, and I'm told they've been in place for approximately 20 years.
All right, so it's definitely time. Yeah, all right. That's fine. Is there any questions from anybody from the council?
Yeah, what's the connectivity gonna be with the fire department with these new consoles?
The same. So
Same.
all radio units will be operating off the Rhode Island EMA system
So
through the
it'll be
800
seamless.
megahertz. So it should be.
Well-
That's the hope. And I think
In certain areas of town, it'll be seamless.
right. I mean, we obviously have there's different radio issues. Carbuncle Pond, for example, has always been an issue. But for the most part, I think it's going to be a significant upgrade. Another thing that happens is officers that key up their portables, dispatch has to cross-reference through a list to basically see if there's an emergency button pressed. These new systems will allow instant operability and instant line of sight by dispatchers with any officers that are having an issue on the street. So it's certainly a public safety and an officer safety upgrade tremendously from what we have now.
I'm all about officer safety, so.
Are there any other
Question.
questions?
I have a question, Lieutenant Blair. Thank you for your presentation. First of all, how much money do you have in the impact fee fund, and what is the source of this money?
So the recent amount that I was told is just north of $300,000.
You have $300,000 in the impact fee fund.
That's correct.
Is that just designated for the police department?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and what is the source of this money?
Those fees, as far as I know, are fees that are collected during
Impact fees
Well, what
from,
is-
building permits.
Well,
and-
Building impact fees.
Building permits, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
no.
So how much,
Excuse me, let me get order here. Let's, have an explanation, Mr. Manager,
Yeah.
please.
It's when. Every time a new property is put up there, the impact fees are assessed as part of what has to be paid. So it's for the new property, the new units that go up. There's a fee structure that they're paid, and those are broken down. A piece goes to the PD, a piece of it goes to the school department, a piece of it goes to John.
Human Resources,
Yep.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
It gets distributed according to a percentage that's
Yep.
been designated
And that's-
in years past.
And that money is it's earmarked for each one, and it has to go into it goes into the impact fee account, line item account, and it only can be used for certain areas. And this, from the solicitor, this does classify as an approved purchase under the impact fees.
Does that
So-
answer your question?
well, it does, because it's new information for me, so thank you very much. But I'm kind of curious, how much money is coming in per year into this impact fund, if that's what it's called, and then distributed?
It would depend on how
But I mean,
many
on
new
average,
properties.
On average, what are we getting?
I couldn't give you that number off the top of my head. We can look it up. John, I don't know if you can?
I wish I could give you the exact number off the top of my head, but I don't feel comfortable giving you that number because it does vary depending upon what buildings are going up and what projects are going up in any given year. So it varies depending upon any year.
A slow year is gonna mean small money.
Mr. Solicitor, you got a comment?
The Impact Fee Act was created by the General Assembly in 2000. It's Title 45, Chapter 22.4, and it enables towns, every town in the state, to create impact fees for residential development for each dwelling unit that is added to the lexicon of dwelling units in the town. The town is allowed to assess an impact fee that's based on a study that is done periodically by the town. And then, as the town manager said, the whole of the impact fee charged for each dwelling is then divided among various departments of the town, including the police department. So this is something that's allowed by the General Assembly. The one thing we have to make sure of is that it's a capital improvement as part of a capital project, a capital building. And in this case, this is an integral part of the new police station, as I understand from the police department. The communication system is installed right in the police station. So it's integral, it's capital, and therefore it qualifies for use of impact fee funds. Does
Thank
that
you.
help?
It certainly does, and I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deb, you have a question?
Yep, I just have one. Is there going to be training on this new system for
Yes.
the dispatchers?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank
you. Okay, Madam Clerk, the next item on the agenda is D11. Would you be so kind?
Resolution authorizing interim town manager to prepay 2019-20 lease payments on police vehicles on lease purchase from 2018 using $32,568.85 of encumbered funds from FY 2019 budget.
Mr. Manager, will you give an explanation, please?
Same situation, the additional funds that we had from the last budget, we're looking to pay off this upcoming year's police lease purchase payment that they have on their vehicles. On the 4 vehicles. 3 are leased, 1 was they bought with the insurance money that were done in 18. So this just, again, opens up a little space, takes care of something from some additional revenue that we've got this year.
It's good to be fiscally using that, in a fiscal responsible manner. So any comments, any questions?
You look perplexed, sir.
I am. I'm a little perplexed because I thought that these payments were made out of the police budget.
They are. They are. We're looking to prepay that, and this money, most of this money is coming from excess on their budget from last year. There's some of it, again, will come out of that contingency that we moved into. John, you've got the exact numbers. It's,
I didn't pull the exact numbers in
Okay.
my hand. However, I know that in the 710 budget, which is the major police, there is, if you look through the line items, we have to do the full net at the end of the year, but 2 big numbers off the top of my head is in the 710 police budget, there's $45,000 in excess, or I would say unspent budgeted expenses that they did not
Yeah,
spend.
I know what you mean.
And then there's another line item in emergency management that had a little bit over expenditures from overtime of about 25. So I have to net out at the very bottom. So that remainder amount will go towards funding this, and then the difference will come out from the contingency.
Okay.
and again, it just gives them some space. It gives all of the town some space for next year's budget. We have checked with our auditing to make sure that we didn't have any issues with this, on doing what we've done on both of these. And it's perfectly within the realm of acceptability for doing what we're doing.
Okay, great. Deb?
And no penalties for prepaying?
No, there's no prepayment penalties.
And
about
we
a
even-
credit?
and just for another look,
Well, we actually looked at that and paid, because there's 2 payments left on this. And we actually looked at paying it all off, and the savings wasn't enough to warrant paying it all. So it's like, well, then they can wait another year to get their money.
It was,
So that's
it was just about $2,000, and it didn't make a lot of sense for fiscally for to keep pushing it off another. It just didn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, with that being said, Chair will entertain a motion.
So move.
We have a motion, do we have a
Second.
second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda, E1. Madam Clerk, would you read it, please?
Public hearing for discussion and or action. Amendment to Charter, Chapter 191, quote, sewers, Section 14, quote, assessment, subsection, quote, H of the Coventry Code of Ordinances.
Okay, Mr. Manager, before we open up a public hearing, if you would just kind of give us an explanation of this, and then we can open up a vote.
I was actually gonna let the solicitor give the
Okay, well, let's-
explanation on
that's
this one.
fine. If you would,
Yeah.
If you would give an explanation, and then we'll open public hearing.
Just to be clear, I think the town clerk might have said charter. This is not an amendment to the charter. Okay, it's an amendment to the chapter 191 of our Code of Ordinances, which is the chapter for sewers. And it's amendment to section 14, subsection H. What this does is this fulfills the long-promised commitment of this council, or at least the president of the council, to reduce the amount of interest that we charge each year for the 20-year payment plan that we make available to members of the public who are who own land that has been the subject of a sewer assessment. So to pay the assessment, you can finance it through the town over 20 years. And the ordinance as written, you will see, is the portion that is stricken. So you'll see that the 6% that is being stricken and replaced with the language that says, this is the rate for the 20-year payment plan, 0.5% greater than the weighted rolling average annual interest rate paid by the town, to be computed by the town manager for the project which brought the sewer line to the parcel. Such same, and this is existing language, such same rate to apply, and then back to what's being added to all outstanding payments until the assessment is paid in full. And then I added, at the request of the tax collector, who also serves as the sewer assessment collector, this money cool, except that this amendment shall not apply to any payments in arrears as of the date of passage of this amendment. So people who have not paid their 20-year assessment payment on time don't get the benefit of this until they do. Or they don't get it. They don't get it because they're not current. There's also an amendment to the provision that says you can pay the assessment in full at any time. This was also made at the request of the tax collector, and I think it does make sense. It's kind of complicated, but I'll read through it and then I'll try to explain. Any assessment may be paid in full at any time. And then we added, provided, however, that whenever any parcel is subject to an initial sewer assessment, and such initial sewer assessment was financed through the town as provided in this section, the entire outstanding balance of the assessment shall become due immediately upon the transfer of any portion of or interest in such parcel, whether by subdivision or condominium or any other division of the property rights which inured in the parcel subject to the 20-year assessment, or whenever a betterment assessment shall become due on any portion of or interest in such parcel. The rest of the ordinance remains unchanged. Explanation. Some of the land that is subject to sewer assessment are large parcels that are perfect for subdivision, and eventually they are subdivided. However, before they're subdivided, they are subject to a sewer assessment. That sewer assessment is paid over 20 years, and it runs with the land. And it's the responsibility of the owner of that large parcel. Let's say it's a 20-acre parcel. That individual or company or whatever is responsible to pay the 20-year assessment on the whole piece. But what happens is, according to the tax collector, is that when it's subdivided into 20 small pieces, and there's no way to effectively keep track of the balance due on each of the 20 subdivided pieces relative to the original owner. And the other thing is notice. People, I guess, become very surprised that they are now going to be paying that sewer assessment that is part of their new, freshly minted 1-acre parcel that's one of the 20 that was created from that 20-acre parcel. And according to the tax collector, reconciling all of this so it makes sense to people is almost impossible and is an accounting nightmare, to say the least, according to the tax collector. So all this does is that when, for example, a developer goes before the planning commission and they get their subdivision done, this will be one of the things that they also have to do. They have to pay off the sewer assessment on that parcel. And then the new amount that is due from each individual lot is assessed according to the betterment assessment portion of our sewer ordinance per parcel. Because remember, when that initial assessment is made, it's one lot. So what is imputed to that one lot is one assessment for one, either, I guess it would be for probably a residential unit based on our code. There are going to be, in every case, more assessments when it is subdivided. And so the only way to do that in an orderly fashion is to require that initial assessment to be paid off. I don't think it's unfair to the developer to require that that be done. And it just makes things much, much easier for the town, and in particular, the tax collector, to reconcile all of these accounts and make sure that it's done fairly. These sewer assessments, one thing that was never pointed out when we had our debate about sewer assessments is they run with the land. However, when you sell your house or your land, the sewer assessment runs with it. It runs with the land. So you don't have to, if you did, let's say you put in a new septic system, just by comparison. I'm not trying to make a case for sewer system versus septic systems, although it did come up during the debate that we had a couple of years ago. If you take out a home equity loan to build a septic system that's required by the DEM because your system is failing, or it's a septic system or whatever, when you sell your house, you have to pay off that loan because it's a home equity loan on your property, and it's pursuant typically to a mortgage that you took out that is to secure a note that you signed. When you sell your home, when you sell the same piece of property that's subject to a 20-year assessment, the assessment runs with the land. So it is picked up by the succeeding homeowner rather than having to be paid out of your closing funds. So that is a benefit. And you also, you're now gonna have, with this amendment, which matches the action taken by the General Assembly, I should say, in the last session, you're getting a much better rate than you did before. You're pretty much guaranteed an excellent rate. And I know Mr. President wanted to do this a long time ago, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Town Manager, the reason we weren't able to do it is because we just didn't have a handle on the sewer finances until more recently, where we could do something like this. So I hope that
Yeah,
I hope the
that was a good
explanation is helpful.
Does it have questions on?
Yeah, I got a
this?
couple of things.
Sure.
And we will open the public comment as soon as there's questions on the council.
As far as the transfer,
Yes.
I understand the way you explained it. The Anthony Mills is a great example.
Yes.
Because at the time, there was a no betterment clause.
That's
so-
right. Well, we didn't have
Right.
a betterment assessment
Right.
then.
So-
That's right.
So, but also what I'm looking at with this is, now, what if I transfer a 1/3 ownership? If I'm paying a sewer assessment and I transfer a 1/3 ownership of my home to my daughter for inheritance purposes, does that mean that anything that is owed now becomes due in full because I transferred part of the ownership of that land?
But it's still the same one piece of property. That wouldn't affect it, right?
It's
Well,
a division.
Read it though. I
If-
mean, the way it reads,
That's a fair point, and if you want to clarify it, I'm happy to clarify it.
I need
I
that.
think you're right.
I-
You could say of the land.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely need that clarified. Because I know that there are people that, I mean, just, they deed their homes over to their children. They gift them over to their children. They come in here, they do a quick claim deed, they gift it over to their children. If there's a sewer assessment on it, as soon as that gift is made, that sewer assessment becomes due in full. I'm not sure that's right. The other thing is I would like to ask the council if every member of the council would consider changing the ordinance to a 30-year repayment period at the new interest rate. I know what kind, I know.
Can I just?
I know what kind of financial conundrum that creates, but I also know what the financial situation of a lot of the families in Coventry are. And I know at this point, we're not planning, please don't think we're planning on going into any residential neighborhood at this point or anything like that. I'm just trying to amortize it out as long as possible for the benefit of the ratepayer. That's all I'm trying to do.
May I make a suggestion about that?
Yes, absolutely.
The 20-year rate.
Before he has a heart attack, somebody should make a suggestion. Yeah, I can see his neck going, oh.
The 20-year period is what was in the original charter for our sewer system. To change that,
Never
I
mind
think
that.
it would be prudent to make the change through the General Assembly, which
I would rather, if we were gonna consider
Yeah.
making that change, I would rather see it done through a Charter Review Commission and then go to the General Assembly.
doesn't have to
But,
go through the Charter
you
Review
know,
Commission.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
the
for
council.
bringing that to my attention, because I did not know that, so I withdraw that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, it can be clarified so that, that it will not, I can write a small amendment in that says nothing herein shall, I can clarify that. I don't want to do it, I don't want to do surgery here. while
Yeah, no,
we're,
I don't blame you, but
I can
would like
clarify
to see
that.
some clarification on that.
It was written broadly. I thought it was best to leave to the discretion of the tax collector when they could exempt a transaction, but I could certainly put something in that made it crystal clear that, what
Please.
you're talking about.
Okay, is there any other questions from the council? Yes, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. One, I'm in favor of the 20 years, except I would like to see some statement in there that if someone is undergoing some type of hardship, they could submit a written request for an extension.
We
Is that
actually,
possible?
we actually will be proposing,
we have a plan to assist the people with a hardship. And once we get this through, we're gonna be bringing that forward. I don't know if we'll have it for the August. It may be that one, but it may be the first one in September that we've got a way to, again, part of the recommendations from the Auditor General. We have a proposal to assist people with this, so we can help them out in a situation like that.
Okay, thank you. And my second question has to do with the transfer, because the word condominium is used in there. And I'm not sure if that refers to an individual condominium, transfer of an individual condominium, or a transfer of a complex that has many condominiums in it. Because I think that terminology, the use of condominium, is a little unclear.
Actually, that is along the same lines as what Member Cody suggested. It's not intended to require the payment of an assessment on an individual condominium. What it's intended to establish is that whether you do land by subdivision, which is the traditional way of dividing property where each person owns a lot, or whether you do it by condominium, which is an entirely different way where everybody owns typically everyone owns the complex, but they have private ownership. They together own the whole complex, but they have private ownership of the space within of each condominium.
I understand.
I didn't want there to be a loophole that if you did a condominium, you didn't have to pay off.
Right.
As opposed to a subdivision, you didn't have to pay off your assessment.
I understand what the intent is.
Yeah.
But when I read it, I had the question, I'm wondering if we can put in condominium complex or whatever it is.
I
With
will
standard
clarify.
terminology in the industry, I think would be good, but when you think condominium, I think an individual unit. And we were talking about if it was an individual residential place, we would not be following this ordinance. But when I see condominium, we're talking about a complex, not an individual unit.
And wouldn't dividing it by, or whether by subdivision that would require a betterment assessment, an additional betterment assessment according to our regulation, our ordinances? Because that's what it's about, adding additional residential units, or, which require betterment assessments, no matter which way you do it. Dividing ownership of the property is not necessarily going to trigger it, but dividing the property in one way or the other to add, again, to
add
additional
additional
units.
dwellings,
Again,
additional-
because, you could have, again, one property on there with, let's say, a couple of residential units, say 2, and then, but okay, well, what we want to do is we want to now make those 2 condominiums, but we want to add 2 more.
Right.
Now becomes 4 condominiums. Well, those are going to be required to have some type, the betterment assessment that's on there, and I think that's where it's going with it, so that nothing more than what's presently on the property, and if it does, that's where, and that's of course assuming that there's still a 20-year loan being, or part of that loan is done. If it was paid off to begin with, it's the point is moot.
I think I've got an idea already. It would be a simple change. I don't want to get into it because we really are here for a public hearing, of course. But there are ways to address Member Cody's concerns and Member Dickson's concerns, and I'll have that for the August meeting. If it's okay, we can take it up again then.
Good idea.
Okay.
Councilman Baker, you have a question?
Yeah, Nick, I just have a question, with except that the amendment shall not apply to any payments in the arrears as the date of the passage. Now, you said that's if folks are not current, but it doesn't state this. So if they become current on their payments?
It doesn't apply to any payments in arrears, not to customers in arrears forever, just the payments that are in arrears.
Okay, but if folks are, if they're struggling to make these payments, that's, they're having an issue with it. It could be, do you know what I'm saying? So,
The problem, part of the problem would be is she would have to go in and manually change because it's not only going to be any new ones, it's going to be everyone is going to be at that 0.5 over the rolling average. So we're going back, but we can't go back. So if there's an owed payment, it's already got the interest accumulated on that. She would have to go into each and every one of those and then manually recalculate the payments on the interest on that. So it would get very, very confusing on her part as well as everything that's got to be done. So what she's saying is if it's already on there as old, that 6% stays on there. If it's because it's already, it's backwards, but anything going forward would be,
From the date of
yeah.
passage.
But that's
The,
not-
the only other,
That's not how it was explained.
No.
what?
How it was explained was they don't get the 0.5% until they're up to date. They're continued to be charged the 6%
On the-
until they're up to date. That's how it was
No,
explained.
on the payment.
On the payment.
On
On
the
the back
payments.
payments,
I
not,
Payments that are already.
yeah,
You're
payments that
right,
are in the
Cody,
rear.
I should have said on the payments that are in arrears.
Yes.
On the
Not the
payments that are in
balance.
arrears.
Not the
I,
balance.
I
Yeah, no.
apologize for that.
No.
Okay.
One other thing that you might take comfort in is when the General Assembly made the amendment, it did not say explicitly that it was retroactive, thankfully, because that would have been very difficult from an accounting standpoint, as well as potentially catastrophic from a collection standpoint, because we would have to have refunded all the payments that we collected in excess of the new standard of the 0.5% greater. The rule of law is that if it's not explicitly stated as being retroactive, then the proper construction of it is that it is not retroactive.
Okay, so now, okay, go ahead.
I have one more question. It says the weighted rolling average annual interest rate rate paid by the town to be computed by the town manager. Can you explain the weighted rolling average annual rate, and why is it computed by the town manager and not the finance director?
I can tell you why the town manager is used. I always use the town manager because the town manager is responsible ultimately for the executive functions of the town, and he can always step in and pinch
Or
it.
she.
Or she.
Did I say he? I apologize. Well, it's a he right now, so he or she can always step in according to the charter and assume the function of, I think, any department head, but especially the finance director. So that's why I use town manager,
I
just to
understand that,
simplify
but
it.
it's not the town manager that is going to be computing these, correct?
That's going to be an answer. That's going to be a question that he can answer right now.
It would be the manager and the finance director together going through to make sure there's two eyes looking at all of the thing. What the rolling average, what's going on is we have all
Yeah, the
different
weighted-
bonds.
Weighted rolling
Right.
average.
We have all different bonds at different interest rates. We also have some of the bonds, the interest rate changes during the lifetime of that bond. So now the question becomes, do you have 12, 13, 15 different interest rates, adding on a half point over and above? That's going to make things really confusing, really a mess, and accounting is going to be good luck. So what we proposed is we take, and by weight it is the total amount that's owed, and the percentage of the amount that's owed by that particular bond, and the interest rate, and the total amount based on that, and then what the average is, and then the 0.5 over the average of those total bonds based on the total amount, and coming up with a number. And that way, we would do that annually to take into account when one changes or if there's a new one. So this thing is always up to date. It's always the fair way to go for the people, and everybody will be at the same rate throughout the system. Where otherwise, you could have some people that are paying, 5.25%, and you could have others that are paying 1.25%.
So just to give a little bit of numbers to give a little clarity to, rather than talking rolling averages and numbers and things like that. So calculating out as far as how much money is owed right now based upon all the different changes of rates. Right now, we're paying just over for everything for this current, for last fiscal year, was just barely over 3%. So going forward, it would be, when someone comes on, we say, well, now you're at 3.52. Assuming it's 3.02 for the weighted average, now you're at 3.52. Very simple, and now the calculations, I can spit that out.
Yeah, we'll set up a spreadsheet, you punch them in, and
Already
boom, it's
done.
done. And every year, we'll do that before they're reissued, and everybody will be given the same rate. and still generate the same amount of money. Some people will actually save money. Some people, and again, most of them are all in the same ballpark, but we do have a few that are down. And to do it the fair way to everybody is to go with that rolling weighted average.
Okay, well, the chair will entertain a motion to open public hearing. We have a motion, we have a second. And we have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, public hearing is open. Does anybody from the public like to comment on this, public hearing? Okay, name and address for the record, please.
James LeBlanc, 43 Hazard Street. First, I just wanted to say thank you to the town council for considering, and also to the interim town manager for considering this, putting it on a town council agenda. It's clearly required to reduce this interest rate. Not only the residents have been asking for it, but the Auditor General even made the recommendation as well. First, I just wanted to ask, I know you guys have been kind of talking about it to some extent, where it says except that this amendment shall not apply to any payments in arrears as of the date of passage. Now, does that mean that a homeowner has actually received an invoice for the sewer assessment and is arrear in its payments? Or could it also be for parcels that are on streets where construction has completed but has not received a bill?
No.
Okay, I'm just
I'll
asking the
give you
question
my,
here.
on the record.
No.
Just asking the question here.
Answer. If you haven't been given a bill, you cannot be in arrears.
I understand that. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
You guys also did. And I think when we were talking about adding 0.5% to the rates, I think it was a system limitation is what you had originally said.
There is. We only can have one interest rate in that system.
But how are you going to do the payments in arrears at a different rate then?
Those payments are already in the system. Those amounts due for the previous year, previous quarter on that is already there. That number is not known. So we can change the interest rate going forward, but it's already locked in that old payment owed.
Understood. Okay. And then as the comment about the assessment going with the land. So let's just say a homeowner has a piece of property, assessment's given, let's just say it's $20,000. They pay it down for 5 years. They didn't subdivide. The parcel remained constant. It's the same parcel, and they sold it. You're saying that the assessment would go to the next buyer, correct? In this amendment, because it is kind of a little complicated.
Well, it's always going to the next buyer.
I understand, but there's some word. I understand why you guys are doing it.
I think what Mr. LeBlanc is concerned about is that upon any transfer, including transfer of the whole,
correct,
the seller would have to pay off the assessment,
correct,
which is different from the way we have done it, whereas people don't have to pay it off when they sell their home. It just is assumed by the new buyer. That is what I am going to address for the
Cody.
issue that I'm going to address that was brought up by member Cody and also member Dickson.
Okay.
And I think I've got it figured out pretty much, but I don't want to mess it up again by saying what it is tonight and then find out I got it wrong. So
We're not taking any action. This is just a public hearing on it tonight, so we have time to.
Understood. And as the comment going with the land, based off of my research over the past 2 years, a lot of realtors will tell you that it's a significant negotiation when it comes to sewer assessments, especially larger ones. So it's not just as easy as saying that my house is worth 200, you're gonna give me 200, and then by the way, you're gonna take on the additional 15,000 in debt related to the assessment. It's usually a negotiated item. And then my last comment is, the sewer subcommittee discussed kind of revamping the entire sewer ordinance, not just a piece, and they were gonna establish a subcommittee for the sewer subcommittee. Is that still gonna happen? Or?
I think that the whole ordinance has been changed within the last year, so it's the first I heard about it. I don't know if the members can have any input on that?
Anything the sewer subcommittee does has to come from the council itself and directed by the council to do something. So I don't know what they said. I wasn't at the meeting when it was said, but unless it's directed by the 5 council members here to them, that's not what their job is.
Chairman Skorka specifically stated that he was going to create a subcommittee for it.
Well, that has to be done by the council.
Because it is a subcommittee.
Just throwing it out there.
I believe he said he would be happy to, to create a subcommittee to do that. And I actually said that I would happy to be a part of it. But again, I believe the manager is correct. It's got to come from the council before they can be charged to do any of that, but to go over the ordinance and bring it back. So,
At this time, it's not
Yeah,
planned, but
right,
we
right.
definitely
wanted
could
to
do
ask
it.
Yeah,
The whole ordinance
absolutely.
has been redone last year.
Yeah, no, I remember you brought it up to the committee, and I'm sure the chairman stated that he would be happy to look at as a whole and with the committee. And I don't recall who else said it, but I think there was at least
couple
three,
of us.
three of us that were looking to do that, but
Understood.
to do it. So, but
And
I
then
guess
my
we can
final
discuss it
comment.
on a council level and do it there.
My final comment is, City of Warwick does allow up to 30-year payment terms. So the infrastructure bank does allow them to do it. So I would assume that it probably would allow our town to do that. I get it, it's a charter change, but as you know, the more payments you make, the less the amount per month. And I just feel like residents might like options.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on this matter? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. Second. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment is closed. The next item on the agenda is public comment for the entire meeting this evening. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to have opportunity for public comment? Yes, sir. And I ask that you limit it to 3 minutes. Give me your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Skip Mays. I live on Perry Hill Road in Coventry. And I guess my question, because I'm not the brightest bulb, item D is in Delta 2, was the resolution that discussed the issues with WED. And I'm confused. I have no idea what's happening now that the council has not moved to accept the resolution. Would either a member of the council or solicitor enlighten me and perhaps others as to where we go now?
Well,
I can't comment on that because a long time ago, I decided to recuse on that.
I noted, and I noted the
So-
other solicitor has left the room.
Right. So I think I'm just gonna stay out. I'm gonna continue my course and stay out of it.
yeah, and this is public comment. It's, we're not gonna do it. Just say that there's no action taken on it. Everything just stays the same. So there's been no action taken. That's basically what it comes down to.
My concern then is echoed by Councilperson Dickson's earlier comments about the issues that have been rampant in Western Coventry regarding these two issues. And I guess I'm concerned that all this does is kick a can down the road, and I'm nervous about that.
What I can just say, well, I don't want to get into a big discussion with it, but it is in the courts. So that's why we can't say a heck of a lot more. It is going to go through the courts. Everything is being challenged. So that's all I really comment I can say out of now. But we are addressing it, and we are bound by legal, it has to play out which role with the court system. So that's what it's doing now.
And that would mean what, Mr. President? Is that
Well,
next
you could
week,
say
next
that-
month, next year, next decade?
No,
that
it's
the
in the
entity
courts.
appealed the planning board decision, which that's the appeal, the zoning board appeal decision. They appealed that in the courts, and that's what the discussion was, on the appeal. So, and we chose not to remand it back to the planning commission, where now when the court comes up with their decision as to what it is. So it's on the process of appeal by WED. That's at this time, and it's in the court.
Well, then for the solicitor, my question might be, or comment might, an inquiry be, in a hypothetical situation, Mr. Gorham, what would this normally result in terms of a time frame?
May I? Because Mr. Gorham may be a little conflicted. Yeah, exactly. We would hope as a council to get a decision out of the courts by mid to end of August. And at this point, it's completely, utterly out of the council's hands. Because of the decision that was made tonight by this council, Now a court will decide what the next step for WED is in their pursuit to continue to develop in Western Coventry. And until we get a decision from the court in hopefully mid to late August, we really don't have any answers.
Well, you've narrowed it down, so I appreciate that.
And here again, we're limited to what we can say in public comment, you know.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, so it's not that I'm not, don't want to answer your questions, but we already did overstep our bounds, and I just don't want any. But I do want to, you know, we do want to let you know, we tried.
Yeah.
No, I think we did, because we just taking public comment, and it was.
Well,
so
the thing,
I'm glad you got
but it is something that was on the
Yeah.
agenda, so.
All right.
Call me, I'd be glad to talk to you about it anytime.
Okay.
Thank
so-
you.
Is that it? Okay, great. Anybody else would like to say something, public comment, name and address for the record?
Yes, Richard Bacon, 16 Catawba Way. Typically, I come here and I vent, you know, because I watch it at home, and then I zip up here when I'm aggravated. But today, I'm here to help. And actually, Mr. McGee, the last time I was here, I gave it to you pretty good. I want to apologize for my tone, not for the content. I appreciate your I appreciate your service, and I love the way you snap a salute to the flag at the end of every play. So thank you.
Spent 20 years in the military. I respect the flag.
Awesome. So I was watching the meeting, and I noticed that you guys are entering into that software agreement with for Vision for the tax. And I did notice that that you have to sign, you know, by August 1st, and then you have to upgrade within 6 months of them releasing the software. What I didn't see in there is a date where they have to release the software. So it's an open-ended on their part, right? You're gonna pay them like 90 grand at the time of signing.
We'll see when we
Right.
get what I pay them.
Right, so, but it says at the time of signing.
I know what it said, but yeah,
And I know all software sales guys are handsome and trustworthy people,
Oh,
but
honest as the day is long, sir.
however, I would suggest that you go back in there and negotiate a date where they need to deliver that software.
That's exactly
That
what
way
we're
it's not
doing. I needed to get approval first before we could make that next step. That's where we're going with that.
I was looking through that.
I'm not handing over a check of, no, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, I saw the addendum.
I appreciate
I saw
that.
the appendix, just want to make sure I
Yeah.
pointed it out. Thanks, good luck.
Nope, thank you.
Are there anybody else who'd like to make a comment?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn is in order.
Second.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.